Welcome to the NUTRIMEDICAL Report, and we have open lines today. Of course, it's Tuesday, Valentine's Day, and of course, it's quite a day. Valentine's Day, of course, refers to the story about the Valentine, and of course, we can go into that at some later date. But I guess the key issue is the Valentine gift to the Republican Party was a budget from Obama today, which broke all records in terms of the amount of the budget. And we may get into that later. We're going to talk about constitutional issues in Hour 3 with Gary Creep. Gary's going to be an interesting guest. We'll also have a new sponsor of the program, Fred Van Loo, talking about some brand new technologies. And you'll see some new changes to NutriMedical. We have amazing new technologies, of course, the new mild hyperbaric technologies, pulse magnetic field. And Fred will be talking today about the new infrared magnetic shower water filtration systems, other technologies to block scalar radiation, etc. So he'll be on hour number 2. Coming up also on Wednesday, tomorrow, we have Keisha Rogers, District 22, Houston, Democratic candidate for Congress. She'll be running, and of course her platform is to impeach Obama, which of course is not well received within the Democratic Party. We will also have Greg Jackson on Wednesday afternoon talking about Ann Coulter and the situation going inside the GOP, the Republican Party, which is, of course, trying to avoid at all costs the gaining momentum of President Ron Paul. And we're going to talk about this, of how they continue to put the latest candidate du jour forward. Now, the latest is Rick Santorum. Of course, at the end, whoever wins, we hope it's not Romney or Gingrich. I could probably go with Santorum, but I certainly feel that the best candidate by far, who's not a warmonger, that doesn't vote for war, is President Ron Paul, which is smaller government, a balanced budget, and pulling back from foreign entanglements, and would get the country back on its track, on the track which made America great, which is independence and self-actuated hard work. That's what we need. We want to have open lines now on any health issues, and of course we get so many amazing consults every day where people ask different types of questions. They could be the average person in the street or a billionaire. They could be a person that's a celebrity or the average person working. We all need help, and what I did 3.5 years ago when the recession happened in 2008 is, in prayer I was told, do not charge anyone for the consults, and I don't. No matter how much time I spend or where we refer, all I ask is loyalty and getting your nutraceuticals and technology through us, because that's how we stay on the air, that's how we expand our reach to more people in the world. And we're one of the more popular shows in the Genesis Network, and Genesis Network is the #1 alternative radio network on the planet. It's the place to go if you want to find out information about what's really happening in your world in terms of the expansion of government, the nanny state society, the interference of the trajectory of human advancement by the global elite and the powers that be within corporations, and all the other things that go on in our society. So it's quite an important role we have to actually be the real news. As they say, the rest is the snooze. It's not news at all. And let's go over some of the latest news. The Mitt Romney, of course, is still has a huge budget, and of course he's facing major tests in the Michigan primary. Once thought an easy win, and so Mitt Romney is not likely to have an easy win there in Michigan, which is good. The issue of abortion, of course, Romney was, when he was the governor of Massachusetts, did not overturn the law passed in 2002, which basically incorporated and forced on religious institutions birth control, and by that, of course, it also means abortion counseling, etc. In socialist countries like Canada, even if you're pro-life, you can get in trouble with the provincial licensing authorities and the boards, the colleges of physicians and surgeons in those provinces, even if you're pro-life, if you don't refer to a non-pro-life physician. If you have a patient, you have to give them the option, even if you're a Christian, to refer. And I, of course, fought against that. Had threats when I was practicing back in Nova Scotia. And people need to know that you have to be pro-life. You can't flip-flop like Romney. Romney basically holds himself out, but he is the flip-flop candidate. And, of course, the amount of money behind him, he is a wannabe globalist, and he has a lot of money, but I don't believe he is the candidate that the conservatives will vote for. I'd like to see the testimony of Mr. Santorum. He was voted in 2006 as the most corrupt congressional candidate, but maybe that's because they targeted him because he did something that ticked off the powers that be. We'll see. His wife lived for years with an obstetrician gynecologist who did abortions for 20 years as a live-in common law wife, and they since had children. It doesn't matter if you've previously been involved deep in the abortion industry. It's even a better testimony if you're pro-life now. So that's something he needs to come out with. He also needs to pull back on the Israel could do no wrong issue and the let's make war deal. He needs to learn a lot from President Ron Paul. Yeah, so even if he came in as a vice presidential candidate, I don't believe he has the wisdom to be a true Republican alternative to the very sneaky, conniving, and lying Obama. Neither is Gingrich. I'd like to see his testimony with his background, his insider connections, etc. So we have a caller. Your name and where you're from and what topic you'd like to talk about.
Yeah, hi, Dr. Bill. This is Mark in Oregon.
Yes, Mark, go right ahead.
Yes, Dr. Bill, I got the extreme, how do you say your product's name? It's not testosterone, but
extreme testosterone. Yeah, good stuff.
Yes. And I've had not severe, but enough to wake me up a couple times tonight if I don't take care of it. For the last 3 years, I've had that fairly regular swelling of the prostate. So I wanted to make sure I understood your information out of the past. I thought that you had said that it is from a too low of a testosterone level.
Yeah, what happens is when your testosterone gets low, your brain sends down peptide hormones, FSH, LH, etc., that actually make your prostate grow.
Okay.
So low testosterone causes prostatic hypertrophy. Okay. The other side of it is you can use healthy prostate, which has crinium latifolium. And the cranium,
I am.
What we use is 4 capsules twice a day of the men's max, which will release the testosterone from your binding protein called sex hormone binding globulin.
Yes.
And then you take 1 to 2 extreme testosterone morning and night. And then for swollen prostate, we use what's called healthy prostate. It has crinium latifolium, which is very, very powerful for shrinking the prostate gland without hormones.
Yes.
The current things like finasteride actually, in a sense, chemically castrate. They block your male hormone.
I see.
You don't want to use the drugs that the doctors prescribe for it.
Never.
And even things like saw palmetto are helpful, but the cranium is far more powerful than that. So what we use is those 3 things. And if there's low-grade infection, if your prostate's swollen, it'll get infected. So you need things like Alamax, Silver 100, Nutridyne, and the Immunomax, and NutriDefense to try to counter infection, because a lot of time the prostate gets heavy metals in it, it gets toxic chemicals, so we need a detox. Yes. That's where things like Max is good. The green tea, the research done by the Mitsuno Tea Company in Japan showed the average male taking 2,000 milligrams of catechins a day. Out of thousands of Japanese males over 20 years, got no prostate cancer, not even one case. So our NutriDefense is the anhydrous catechin, the most powerful one. We also have Green Tea Supreme. So I tell people with prostate, you need to keep out the heavy metals and the chemicals.
Absolutely. Okay. Do you have a condition here which is unsolvable, essentially, Dr. Bill, or is there a way to actually move the body back to where it was when the prostate did not swell? Or is it'll come back. It'll take about a year or more, but it'll come back. You can shrink the prostate, you can get rid of infection, you can regenerate it, you can use things like lumen photon and pulse magnetic field if it's really bad. And the main thing is you don't want to do radiation therapy or chemo, even if you've had prostate cancer. You want to treat it with things like Dr. Brzezinski's clinic for prostate cancer. The best test for the prostate is free and combined PSA, which is more accurate than this PSA alone. Tell you if the elevation is due to actual prostate cancer. Stay there. We have another caller as well in New York. Back in just a moment. Welcome back, and of course we have a caller, Dave in New York, had a financial question about our guest, and you made a very important point. Can you repeat that on that you did on the break, Dave?
Yes, it was interesting to hear your guest yesterday. He seems to be a financial expert related to taxes and retirement funds, etc. and suggesting different plans to work within the existing system. Whereas Bob Chapman, I've heard him numerous times saying, just get out of paper. And so there seemed to be a little disconnect. You can't do both at the same time, or can you?
Well,
and how do we reconcile these? Yes.
Yeah, that's a really good question. First off, I call it financial dispensation, just like dispensations in the Bible at different time periods. The first thing is we're not investing right before the 1929 crash or in the 1970s or 80s. We're investing in 2011. A lot of us, if we haven't had a financial plan, you have to realize that I tell people that at the moment, everybody should have at least 20 to 25% of their assets into gold and silver coins and or gold and silver companies. That's not going to last forever. We know that at some point they're going to have a convertible worldwide currency, probably either the dollar or a new super euro that'll emerge in the next 2 to 5 years. And at the point where they do that, and the 400,000 plus tons of gold can be converted by these governments, globalist bankers that they bought at 1/10 or 1/20th the cost, when they exchange them at $3,000 to $6,000 an ounce, they'll do it. And when they do that, before that happens, you want to dump. You want to dump your gold and silver, because where we're heading for, and this is right in the Bible, we're heading toward a time where we're going to have a world currency. We de facto almost have that. Right now, what's really going on in the horse trading and the wars in the Middle East, and even the setting up the Arab Spring, is to put the squeeze on China and Russia so that they cooperate in the world financial markets and allow, for example, the Chinese economy, which the last 2 years they've actually been blocking international, especially American transnational and other investments by transnational American-based companies, to buy into China, which is basically a slave state with 1.3 billion slaves and 80 million only communists. There are only 80 million communists in China, not 1.34 billion. They'll tell you that, but the members of the Communist Party are limited. And they're really rich. They had their sons fly back and forth to London to buy things, and after Christmas sales, they go to the best universities in the United States. They have Airstream jets, etc. So there's more, 80% of the new billionaires in the last decade were in China. And that's because all the transnational corporations moved their business there. What's going on, though, is they have a central economy no different than the Federal Reserve, where they print as much currency as they want. So they have a superheated economy. Now what's going on is they're trying to horse trade with the Europeans. They want the Europeans to change their status, like on the carbon tax of airlines flying in from China. They said they're not going to pay it because the Europeans want them to buy their sovereign debt. So what we're really moving into is we're moving to a dispensation right now where at the moment you want to have 25% at least or more of your investments in gold and silver. Then you have to play around with corporations what we call they're stable. And you can look at, as he says, Ron Lara, at risk. You got to look at risk, and you have to be in some degree of paper, but you have to know at what time it's time to get in and out. I don't believe in this idea of day trading where you trade, in and out of the stock market and try to do that kind of thing. That's dangerous because a lot of the day trading is done by computerized trading machines that can literally, if you go into highly leveraged trades, you can get wiped out. Yeah. So, as he said, you have to figure out where your goal is and what money you want to have at a certain point of time if you quote retire or change from one career to where you're doing a hobby or another career at less income, and you're out of your previous job, or you sold your company off, or you've done whatever. So I take a balanced approach that it's a matter of dispensations. What do you do in 2 or 3 years' time or 5 years' time when it's time to dump your gold? What are you in? Well, you got to be into something that's going to be of value. I think that, for example, one thing that's going to come back, but it'll take a while, probably in the next 3 to 5 years, is real estate will come back. But it probably will come back in about 5 years when you see the government's forced because of the mess that they've made in the mortgage situation and properties. The only way the economy will ever get really going is if they let the property value drop, which is the Democrats, neither the Democrats or Republicans want to swallow this, but they should, which is actually to pay for the difference so the property values can drop to where the market will bear them and people still have equity. So they aren't trying to remortgage homes that they can't remortgage because the mortgage company says, well, your home is only worth $700,000, but you got an $800,000 mortgage. Or you got a $300,000 home that's the actual value, but you have a $500,000 mortgage. So if we don't take the bull by the horns to do that, these people don't have the dispensable income. A lot of people are dumping more and more real estate. So the government's got to stop, figuring that they can just tax the people that are small businesses, because the over the million crowd is primarily all the small businesses that employed 75% of the people in the country. So I think that the general principles I go by, and that's why we have people, a range of experts. I agree that with Bob that, firstly, there's not going to be a big war in the Middle East. That's not going to happen. There may be a regional conflict, just like there's this regional conflict in Syria, and they keep on trying to push the regime change. What they want to do is put in the Sixth Caliphate, which is basically Masonic Muslims that are tied to the European bankers, and that includes Al-Qaeda, which was an invention of the CIA. So they are in firm control. That's why Zawahiri, the actual surgeon from Egypt, actually, who's supposedly the head of Al-Qaeda now, comes out and says, yes, our people, we support them in Syria. And they've come out and clearly stated that Al-Qaeda is doing it. Well, how does that tie in with your finances? Well, they're going to do an economic choke point in oil. Oil will probably hit $150 to $200 a barrel this year, but the oil reserves in the United States are immense. We have more oil in Canada, the United States, and Alaska than the whole rest of the world put together that would supply our needs for millennia, not just centuries. There is no environmental problem because if we stop doing stupid hydrofracking and just do proper safe oil exploration, safe burning technologies, and safe carburation, get rid of all these nuclear plants that are unsafe, if they're near fault line, convert them to natural gas, liquid natural gas, like the Japanese are doing. That's why they're a huge market. Start collaborating with countries like China and Russia and say in our agreements, you got to stop polluting the air that blows across California, the United States, and Europe. So what we have to do is stop thinking of how can we build up toward a war, because what all these countries should realize, and that includes China, is war is obsolete, even proxy war. When we went into Libya and Tunisia, these are the last of what I call the proxy wars where you can get away with it. Syria and Iran, you can't get away with it because the Syrians and the Iranians have collaborated on the Russian weapon systems for biological weapons. They have fuel air bombs, some of the most advanced chemical weapons labs in the world. And if we try to do an attack even without Russia and Chinese help, this is going to become a very big thermonuclear war in the Middle East and a war between India and Pakistan. And it'll pull in China and Russia. Before you know it, we've got a third world war. So my guess is that gold and silver are the thing to get for the next 2 to 5 years. And you have to watch the signs, listen to the program, get Bob Chapman's newsletter. You have to get into safe investments that are paper. And you have to know when to start moving toward real estate when you see the government making positive moves to fix the real estate market, which they have to, or the economy will never get going. And I guarantee once we get a new government and get rid of Obama, that will start to happen probably in the next 2 years.
So, hey, Bill, I got another question over the break.
Sure. When you come, we'll come back and try to answer it.
And when you're out there without care, yeah, I was out of touch. But it wasn't because I didn't know enough.
David J.
Welcome back, and you had some very good questions, Dave. I'd like you to kind of capsulize what you said on the break, if you could.
Yes. I had a question regarding the mark, for one.
The mark of the beast, right? Mark of the beast.
When the mark is forced on all the world to do commerce, what good are funds going to be in mutual funds, retirement funds that you can't access without the mark?
Exactly. And, well, first off, retirement isn't for retiring. I don't believe in retirement personally. We call it retirement because I call it retreading. It should be called retreading. In other words, you're deciding you're going to change your career. I don't have a date that I'm going to put down, say 2012, 2016, or whatever, but I can tell you the signs. And from my analysis, this isn't saying thus saith the Lord, because there are things that I'll say that to. From my analysis, I believe that this year you're going to see either a prelude to the treaty or the treaty signed this year or next. Very likely this year. And there's a couple of reasons why I suspect that. Firstly, we're on a hair's edge toward a trigger of a nuclear attack against Syria and Iran. Number two, the mark is basically an electronic currency. It doesn't matter if you have an implantable chip or a tattoo or just a number. That number can even be your biometrics, your fact that you're now entered as a number. You're the number. Your retinal scan, your iris scan, your digital fingerprints, your facial biometrics, your body terahertz scan.
We already are.
Right, we already are. And they're building that database, okay? So In India, they will be finished this in 2 years. All 1.3 billion people will be scanned in 2 years' time in India. And so what they're doing now with the G20, and if you look at the G20 conference that occurred in 2010, they actually had the president of Russia bring a coin for the New World Order, a world currency coin, if you actually go back and Google this. And so other countries are basically saying, Russia and China, we want a convertible world currency, which is a basket. The center of that will be the U.S. dollar, because 75% of the dollars printed of all the currencies in the world in fungible currency is the U.S. dollar. 85 to 90% of all non-printed currencies in electronic funds transfer is in U.S. dollars. So when the Chinese want to buy Portland cement, or they want to build a giant skyscraper, a new factory, they have to actually exchange renminbi for U.S. dollars to buy it. In other words, they have to exchange it and buy U.S. dollars in order to buy those things. What they want to do is take the U.S. dollar and devalue it somewhat, put it together with a G20 currency, and then back it probably with gold in the next few years. That's my prediction of what will happen. What's going on in Europe is they're purposely demolishing Europe so they can resurrect it as a new superstate where the central control of finances of all 27 nations, 17 now and lately, and this is an end-time prophetic fulfillment, will become the largest economy on earth. It won't be China or America. This new superstate of Europe, of 27 nations, will be de facto number one. America will be number two, and China number three, a very close number three after America. That's what they're planning. And what they want to do also, remember now, the carbon credit system is already in place in Europe. So they want a carbon neutral world currency, which will be backed by gold, meaning every action and every financial transaction will have a carbon tax associated with it. And if you don't generate increased carbon credits, then you won't be taxed. It'll fund for world government, for humanitarian aid, for military forces. It'll be an amalgamation of United Nations, World Health Organization, which is under, say, the treaties that they signed for the swine avian flu. They will use this for earthquake rescue because of the earth changes, which are increasing dramatically in extreme weather, tsunamis, etc. Just look at Madagascar. The entire east side of the nation of Madagascar was struck with a cyclone that hit it at 250 kilometers an hour. They turned off the power to the capital. I mean, it just whipped through. Imagine 250 kilometers an hour. That's like unbelievable force. So
yep.
What we're going to see is and this is why it's all not going to happen this year. This year we're probably going to have enough destruction. Like, they want regime change in Syria. Syria might have regime change, although I'm not really thinking that's going to happen right away, because I believe that ultimately Syria has, as it says in the book of Jeremiah, there's going to be destruction to the city of Damascus, where it'll be completely annihilated, which means they have to be an enemy of the state of Israel, and Israel is going to nuke them. The city of Damascus is the oldest continuously lived city in history on the planet. It will be annihilated. In other words, it's in a bowl, so it's going to be hit with a nuke, and that's, if you actually read the Bible with proper, as I say, the Bible interprets itself, like Daniel said, close up and seal these words to the time of the end, where God's revealing all these things now. He's showing us supernaturally, he's showing us in dreams and visions, he's also giving us the science to understand what the Bible was actually saying. And so it's my prediction that they probably will not get regime change, but they'll have a peace treaty this year. It'll be ratified by none other than the U.S. president, who has the scroll of Bush given by the Sanhedrin, which was reconstituted after the State of Israel came back. They have all the implements to start the Jewish sacrifice by rabbinic law, and you can check with any Jewish scholar. They can only sanctify the temple and start the sacrifice in the Feast of David or Sukkot. And that Feast of Tabernacles will start the last 7 years to the day. And one of the things that people say in the Bible, which is misinterpreted by many Christians, is no man knows the day or the hour. I can't give you a date rate today, but I can tell you the signs are there in the Bible. That's why he says be a watcher. And those signs are when they partition the state of Israel, which is the Oslo Accord, when they partition the city, which will give Al-Quds, the capital of New Palestine, when they set up a blood sacrifice in the Temple Mount, which is the abomination that shall desolate or remove Jews from part of the state. And see, I personally don't believe in partitioning the state. The problem is that the Sabbatean globalist satanic Jews treat the Palestinians like they're dogs, and the Palestinians train their children to blow up Jews as if they're animals. So we have both sides are different forms of Satanism, and there's a small fraction of real Messianic Christians, and real Torah Jews that aren't evil, and then there's a lot of secular people that are just of Jewish heritage or want to live in the land of Israel, or, you know, in other words, there's a very tiny proportion of real people that are real Christians or real Jews there that are back in the state. But like when Jesus saw the fig tree, he said he cursed it because it had no fruit. Well, that's the state of Israel. It has no fruit. It's not returning to the land after Messiah returns, which most scholarly Jews that are Torah Jews, not Talmudic, but the Torah Jews, know clearly that you're not to return to the land until Messiah shows up. And to a Jew who hasn't accepted Yeshua HaMashiach as the Father in the flesh, which is what he is, not a separate God, you know, not as a triune God that you often hear the Trinity. The Trinitarianism is also Masonic. People need to know that
it's not in the Bible.
It's not in the Bible. Okay, what it is, and it says right in the Torah, it says right in I'm a Messianic Jew, and I have for many years, you can look at the Chronicles, and it says a little mezuzah on the door, and that little mezuzah has a little scriptures that says the Lord God is one. When Jesus came to earth, he was the Father in the flesh. It is not a separate spirit when he went to heaven. It's his spirit. He's God. And he can appear because God is so great, he can make billions of universes, let alone our little universe, and he can still know every hair in our head and be concerned about us personally. That's how great God is. He exists outside time.
That even talk about the world, and people don't recognize what it's saying or what it could be saying. They reject it altogether, saying the earth was the only creation, which the scripture does not even say.
No, and he says, I have other sheep.
Why jump to the conclusion?
It's also misinterpreted by groups like the Mormons who say you have other sheep, and he thinks that he came and went to the Americas, to the natives, etc., after he resurrected. Not true. There is no such thing as Zarahemla and all this other garbage. People need to know, if they haven't read the Book of Mormon, The Pearl of Great Price, and Bruce McConkie's Mormon Doctrine, just how weird and cultic it is. They have to know that it's satanic. They have to know when you go to the temple recommends you actually swear an oath in front of someone playing the role of Satan. It said, man must fall so he may know both good and evil so he can be as God. In other words, you'll be a God someday just like the God in heaven. No, you're not. You're a child of God, and you have authority today, not tomorrow, not when you die. You enter heaven today when you start having a relationship with God. And that means whether you're a doctor or scientist, you're not a part-time Christian, you're not a part-time believer. You can't know about Jesus. You have to do, just like Fred Astaire. If you want to dance like Fred, you have to practice while you watch him. You have to do as he does, and it's called entering into a life. It doesn't matter if you're a politician or whatever, and you can't serve other gods. So what we have is...
The question is, what do you do? What do you do when the mark is released? What do you do?
You're going to have
basically...
you
conduct your...
When we come back, I'll give you an answer to that, because I think people want to know. Firstly, you have to know the times and seasons. You have to be in prayer. You have to know where you convert from gold and silver to what are called survival assets. You have to be in a group with others that are like-minded and ready. Welcome back, and just to complete that answer, we want to bring on, just for this next segment, Marie Dubuque, talking about Valentine's Day and some wisdom for those people out there that want to, as I say, do the right thing on the day for lovers, and for people that love their family, their wife, their husband, and to love the world. You know, what do you do on this day? Just to complete, firstly, we have to look at dispensations. We have to say what's going on now, what's likely to go on in the future. And we'll have more specials on that. In fact, on the third hour, we're going to have Gary Creep, and we'll talk about constitutional issues. We'll bring this back up. Marie Dubuque, can you tell us about Valentine's Day and what kind of encapsulated advice? We just have a segment, so I want you to kind of crystallize your advice so that people don't do the wrong thing, do the right thing on Valentine's Day, around anniversaries, etc.
Hi, Dr. Bill. Yes, I know a lot of men are really, really stressed at this time of the year. And it's like us women, we are stressed around the Christmas, and it's Valentine's Day that really gets these guys. And what I see is they go to the grocery store on the way home from work, and they pick up a six-pack and a Kit Kat bar and a card they haven't even looked at, and they call it a day. And that is just not going to cut it.
Yeah.
And what I say is, women, you've got to tell men what you want. And that is, don't say, I don't really need anything and you don't have to get me anything. For my birthday, I send my husband a link 2 weeks before my birthday. This is what I want within his price range. I know we're a little late now, but at least you could say, well, let's get dinner out or order in, or if you really have no money, there's a deli department, which is a godsend, because you can get a pre-made meal at the deli department of the grocery store, bring it home, put some candles out, and there you go.
Yeah, that's really good. It shows you care. In other words, it's more than a card. I try to listen to my wife, so my little bit of advice, and I'm getting wiser as we've been married now. I think it's on the 28th year now. Last year, she said, I don't like cut roses. So what I did last year is I planted 3 rose bushes on the side of our driveway. I had our professional gardener do that.
I love that.
So beautiful yellow roses, which she loves. This year, I wanted to get something that was a plant that would never die. You live for decades. And I got her a Phalaenopsis orchid plant, which is, about 3 feet tall with these beautiful orchids on it. And if you water it, it'll last decades.
Oh, she must be a real green thumb, because I kill orchids. But that is, so she must love
I'm the green thumb.
plants.
I'm the green thumb of the family. I've got a fruit and nut grove and a greenhouse where I grow everything from spices to whatever. I've got a green thumb. I like growing and doing things like that. So I'll make sure the orchids are happy.
Oh, see, you're doing everything right, because you know what your wife loves.
And also,
I got something that won't die, that'll come back year after year. That's all we want. Someone told me we want to be cherished, and that's resonated with me. And you have cherished your wife by doing that. And that's the thing. We don't want you to spend a lot of money, guys. Just put some thought into it, like you have.
Yeah, and also you can do something as simple as writing a short story, a little poem if you want. You may even sound stupid, but if it's you, then they're going to love that because you've made an effort rather than just buying a card off the grocery store shelf or a gift shop and just kind of signing it, I love you kind of thing.
Right, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I got myself a little Valentine's gift. I went and got my nails done at the spa, and in front of me in line was this guy, and he was getting a gift card for a massage or a facial for his wife. And I'm thinking, that's a great idea, because I don't like gift cards as an etiquette expert. I think that they're like cash. But in this case, I think that's a great idea. And if you have no money at all, you can volunteer to do a massage yourself.
Right. Yeah, exactly. You can actually get something that's really simple, like just get the proper things and say, today, dear, I've read a book online, or I went to Google or whatever, and I know how to do a foot massage or a back massage, and I'm going to do this as your gift or something. It has to show, and it also is a good example of how we have to take care of not only each other, but our whole family and our society. We have a society that's disconnected.
Yeah.
And I think that's why we have such a high rate of divorce, why we have broken marriages, broken families, and a broken culture. Because we don't know what Valentine's Day is. You know the history of Valentine's, right?
Yes, St. Valentine's, and he was in prison for rejecting Christianity, and he wouldn't, right? And then he had the friendship with the jailer's daughter, and signed the letter, "Your Valentine." Is that kind of how? I think I had that right. I don't know.
Well, they call him. He actually became a saint. What happened is, it's an interesting story about Saint Valentine. We probably can't get into all of it, but what it basically meant is his love exceeded the danger he was exposed to, basically. And he was a Christian, but what happened is they wanted him to compromise, and he wouldn't even compromise in his love. That's the thing we have in our society, and that's one of the things where we're so busy nowadays doing things, being distracted by, sports or this activity or that activity. A lot of times it doesn't have to cost a lot of money. It can be something really simple, but it should be something that lasts or also fits the character of the other person. And
exactly.
I'm sure that,
Right, and you mentioned he had courage, and it was friendship with the jailer's daughter, too, I think. And that's one thing, single people, it's like about friendship and not about love and romance for Valentine's Day. So for single people, get out there, have fun, and don't worry about not having a date. When I was single in my 20s, I didn't get married till I was 30. I was so depressed on Valentine's Day, and you don't have to be. Just go out and have fun. In Australia, they have this party all over the country, Desperate and Dateless, and they know how to have fun. So let's do that here, because we don't want to leave out the single people.
Yeah. Let me read off of Wikipedia. St. Valentine, in Latin, Valentius, is a name of several, for 14 in all, martyred saints of ancient Rome. Name Valentine, derived from the valens, worthy, strong, or powerful, was popular in late antiquity. Of St. Valentine, whose feast is on February 14th, nothing is known except that he was buried on the Via Flaminia, north of Rome, on February 14th, and that he was born April 16th. It's uncertain whether the feast of that day celebrates only one saint or more saints of the same name. For this reason, a liturgical commemorative was not kept in the Catholic calendar of events for universal liturgical veneration as revised in 1969. So he was martyred, basically. He was basically.
And was it 270 A.D.? Was that it? 270 A.D. was the day he died?
Something like that, yeah. It was.
Yeah.
I think they're talking about compiled.
The daughter. Can you tell me this? Was it? It wasn't necessarily a romance, because it was a friendship, right, with the jailer's daughter, and then he signed it "Your Valentine," and that's how we got the Valentine's Day. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it showed basically he had a friendship that was beyond. Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so it's more about friendship than it is about hearts and flowers, because this was not a romance, and so I don't know how it got to be hearts and flowers and romance this holiday when it really wasn't about that.
I think it was the love that transcended the fact that he was in jail and he was about to be murdered. It was basically unrequited love. There was a situation there.
Right, yeah. And his courage and his faith, and that's what we should be celebrating. And it shouldn't be all about the presents either, because we, again, commercialized the whole holiday.
Well, what happens is we're becoming less human. We're turning into cyborgs. It should be, Valentine should be called Anti-Cyborg Day. How's that?
Yeah, let's change the name. Let's start a movement.
Yeah.
Instead of talking about presents, let's talk about that for next Valentine's Day.
Anti-transhumanism Day. How's that?
Okay. Let me know.
It's okay to live longer, but not become first contact. Star Trek. One of many. That kind of thing. And it doesn't mean that the I and the we can't exist at the same time. We are not show that love with people of other countries and other places of the world, because right now we have a broken world that's heading toward war. There's economic chaos. There's disparity. The 1% own everything. It's not the time when people thought by this time people would be working 8 hours a week and one income would be plenty, and people would mainly be studying and becoming artists and learning other things. What's happened is a small number of people have become more and more wealthy. It's because of lack of love. It's because of the things that are the opposite of what was demonstrated by Saint Valentine, or all these different Valentine type saints, or people that were good people that were, in a sense, martyrs of the early Roman Church. They're all Christians, basically.
Right. Yeah. And it's so good that you brought this up, because I think we get too caught up, like you said, in the pressures of getting a gift, when that's what it's about. And if we just think about that, what the holiday's really about, it really can change your attitude. Yeah,
exactly. And that's why I think also doing something for the other person. Like, I would never take cut flowers to my wife. I learned that a long time ago.
I was on the radio earlier, and this woman told me, the host told me that her husband did that one year, and she's allergic, and she woke up with her eyes completely swollen shut the next day. So, yeah.
And by the way, orchids are hypoallergenic. They not only are a symbol of eternal life because they last for decades, but they also don't induce allergies in anybody.
Teach me how to grow one. Honestly, I've been trying forever. I go with water plants. But anyway, thank you so much for having me on your show.
We'll have you back on at another appropriate date when it's the time when love has to conquer all.
Okay, thank you.
I appreciate it. Mary, I'll put up your link for your site as well so people can find out more about what you do. We will be. In fact, midnight tonight is my birthday, so...
Oh, happy birthday. Oh,
so I got a double dose here today. Exactly, yeah. Yeah, thank you. We'll be back in hour number 2 with amazing new technologies with Fred Van Loo, Bruce McKeever on hyperbaric oxygen, Chris Johnson, and Gary Creep, our special third-hour guest coming up on constitutional issues. You don't want to miss it. And this evening on hour 3 on Jeff Retz.